One of the things I noticed in the comments under my recent Rage 2 videos was a tendency for some people to think that I had perhaps got the wrong impression of what Rage 2 was supposed to be. That I had bought an action shooter thinking it was going to be a sort of deep story-driven experience, and thus I was disappointed because I did not get what I expected. And a few people seem to think that this game really was it's just like Doom, it's just combat. You should only be playing it for the combat, and if the combat is great, I don't understand why you're complaining. I mean, if it's a combat game and you don't like combat, don't buy it. If you like combat, it looks like a great game. And I realised that a lot of the problem is of my own making. I have probably given you the wrong idea of this game, because in all of the videos I've made about this, I've generally used footage of the combat. And the reason for that is pretty simple. That was the footage I tended to record. When planning to make videos, I wanted interesting footage. I wanted fun stuff that was engaging to the eyes. And that was probably a mistake. Because in a 20-minute review video, where I'm showing 20 minutes of high-octane combat, you would be forgiven for thinking, well, I don't see the problem. Just, oh god. The problem is you're not looking at the road. I don't see the problem. I'll tell you what, I should probably have stuck with the controller while driving. I haven't tried the controller much while driving. It's still a little odd, but it's a little better than the keyboard. Not that driving's particularly engaging in this game. But yeah, so most of the video was high-octane combat. And that is just not a good representation of what this game is like. Because a better representation of this game would actually be to drive around for 4 or 5 minutes, then get out of your car and fight for 3 or 4 minutes, then spend 10 minutes searching around for some boxes and trying to hit them with your rifle and having a hard time doing so because for some reason the hitbox for the loot crates is kind of stupid. Then perhaps spending 3 or 4 minutes returning a vehicle. Oh, there's vehicle combat. I can't be bothered engaging in the vehicle combat. It takes a while and a bit of concentration, and I don't want to do that now. It's also not that fun or rewarding. You know, and then spent 5 minutes taking a truck I'd found back to town. Why? Well, basically because there's an actual garage, and if you take your vehicles back, they get added to your garage, and then you can use those vehicles from the garage, and you do get some rewards. For what purpose? I don't really know, because the rewards are all for your main car, which I'm driving, and is the best car. In fact, it's the only car you'll really want, except perhaps the helicopter. The bikes are bloody horrible to drive. The other vehicles you find, like that one, usually drive like a cow or get destroyed almost instantly if anything looks at you. So it's kind of like you're doing it because there's a list of things to collect. You know, you're just doing the usual thing of, there's a checkbox, I want to fill it. I also want to set the GPS off. And that's it. So that would have been a better representation of this game. Me just driving around, occasionally fighting, and spending most of my time doing random stuff. Oh, and maybe 5 minutes of running around the town so you could see what was going on. And that is unfortunately the problem with this game. The combat is great. Those of you who said, oh, you should only play it for the combat, yeah, that's the only reason to play this game, in my opinion. The problem is there's so much other stuff getting in the way that it's kind of annoying. Let's just get out and shoot some things for the lols. And that is really the major problem. Oh, nice shield. With the game. The only thing that's fun is the combat, and there's just not enough of it. Although occasionally it can be fun. So, you know, It's partly my own fault for showing the interesting bits and not showing all the downtime and all the scavenging. And I do want to say, my problem with this game is not that it does not meet my expectations, what I expected the game to be, because I expected the game to be Rage with better combat. The fact that it's a little different doesn't bother me. It's the fact that the game's kind of boring apart from the fighting. You know, I don't mind an open world game. I'm just not liking this open world because it's kind of boring. It looks reasonable if you ignore the aliasing. It's just not particularly engaging. I'm not upset that they changed the vehicular combat. I'm upset that the vehicular combat is now dull. I don't mind that they've made the game a scavenger game. I like scavenger games. I just mind the fact that scavenging in this game is boring as hell. That's the problem. It's not what I thought the game would be, and me being disappointed that is the problem. It's the problem that the game is just not fun. And, you know, when it comes down to it, it's pretty simple. If you're not having fun, why are you playing a game, right? I'm not doing a very good job on the fight this time. I'm too busy trying to focus on talking. Give me a second. Concentrate a little bit. The combat's not that difficult, but you really do have to concentrate a little more than I'm doing right now. Actually, not much more. As you can see. So yeah, it's oh, I forgot one. And let's do something a bit. That's really annoying. This is such a powerful weapon. Yeah, so in a way, I suppose I do have to apologise for giving people the wrong idea of the game. The combat is fun. It is brilliant. And if there was more of it, and it was more consistent and better paced, I'd probably enjoy the game a lot more. I mean, the people who say things like, well, you know, you should have just bought it and played it like Doom. I wish I could have. I mean, Doom is a game where you start with a pistol and then immediately start killing things. And then you get another weapon and continue killing things. It's got very tightly designed maps that really do funnel you around, allow you to do your objective, and allow you to go into a state of non-stop combat, right? I mean, that's what you do. And it's fulfilling and it's well paced and everything makes sense. All the missions make sense. It may not be much of a story, but it's enough for what you're doing.
Systems activating.
Rage 2 just lacks that purity of purpose to be a pure action game. It lacks the pacing to keep me engaged, even though the combat is actually a ton of fun. The combat really is a ton of fun. Yeah, sorry, I just felt like running someone over. But you get very despondent because of all of the other stuff. So, yeah. In a way, though, it's a bit of a learning experience. It makes me realise how important it is to match the visuals to the commentary, because one of the things I did say is, you know, you could do the entire game with the shotgun and then showed footage of me killing things with lots of different weapons. Again, a victim of my own cleverness there. I use the word cleverness in air quotes. I was trying to find different footage of different weapons just to make the video a little bit more interesting. I wanted to show you the grav gun because it's kind of cool, so I included it. I wanted to show you, you know, the pistol with the fiery thing, so I showed it. But honestly, when I switch to other weapons that are not the shotgun in this game, I'm doing so because I want to mix it up.
Soon, Walker.
You know, as I said in the video, the rocket launcher, the shotgun, and this, the hyper cannon, probably the only weapons you need. This is actually a really superb weapon for the sentries. Everything else is kind of incidental. The assault rifle's kind of nice on some of the yard trash if you're running out of shotgun shells, but you really won't run out of them much. But you know, that's the point. Because I use different footage in the video, people assumed that one person seemed to assume my complaint about being able to do the entire game with the shotgun was unfounded. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the shotgun. I do love the shotgun. I would like to have seen the other weapons have a bit of love. Sorry about that, just random phone calls. I'm gonna leave that in so that you get a better idea of your average play experience. I'm not going to try and make this look fun and interesting and exciting visually. I'm just going to drive around so you get a feeling for what the place is like. Now, of course, the footage I'm showing you now is probably not a good representation of the game either, because I've actually finished the game on this particular save, and honestly, you know, there probably would have been one or two things I passed getting here where I would have jumped out and spent 2 minutes fighting. So you would have gotten to see 2 minutes of fighting rather than just 10 seconds on a roadside gang. But then you would have also gotten to see 10 or 15 minutes of me running around trying to find all of the boxes and hitting them with the butt of my rifle, which would have been very boring footage, but it might have given you a sense of what was going on. Even once you get the upgrades that let you find things a little easier, you could still be spending 5 and 10 minutes, depending on the place you're at, finding absolutely everything and going through the data pads. Oh, and I should probably also have had the occasional pause in the video for 10 seconds and forced you to mash one of your buttons until it continued, because the game does have a tendency of interrupting the flow at critical moments with some time-stopping quest update that's utterly unimportant. I don't care if my project standing has gone up 2% with one of the people anymore. I just don't care. Stop telling me. Certainly stop telling me midway through a fight or, you know, trying to find loot boxes. So anyway, hopefully this makes up for a little bit. Hopefully you can see that it's not a problem with my expectations of the game. It's a problem with what the game actually delivers. Oh, and at this point you might well be thinking, if you don't like this game so much, why do you keep making videos about it? I mean, seriously, you don't like it, move on. And I think it's because there's something here. There's some potential I feel that's just not been tapped into. That, you know, there is a place for a game like this that has excellent combat but isn't quite as combat focused as Doom, for example. I mean, it didn't need to be a non-stop mayhem game like Doom. It could have had like 20% of the game as combat and still been a good game had all of the other aspects of the game been interesting. The NPCs, the quests, the scavenging and the looting. If the scavenging and the looting had been more interesting, you know, maybe it could have been good. There are scavenging games out there that do it. You know, I'm not sure how you would do it in a game like this, but games like Borderlands take this kind of world and have interesting combat and still make it fun and interesting. So it is possible. And I think I'd like more games like that. And I enjoyed Rage 1. I've got to say, I actually enjoyed Rage 1 more, even though the combat in this game is better. So I just feel there is such a wasted opportunity here. This could have been so much fun. You know, they could have done so much more with this idea, so much more with this world, so much more with the cars, so much more with the NPCs. Just, it's like everything is there in potential. All of the ideas are kind of, you know, just almost kind of beginning to form, but they're half-baked, unfinished, and lacking any real substance. And seeing as the only thing you get is good combat, and you don't get enough of it, you spend an awful lot of time focusing on the things the game does really poorly. You can't help it. And that is such a shame. That is just, it's such a shame. Because even now, I want a Rage 3. I do. I want them to try again and get it right. I really do. One of the criticisms in the first game was the game was too short. And they seem to have tried to fix that by just stretching the game out with meh. Because in actual fact, if you just ignore all of the stuff that's really not important, and honestly, that is most of the stuff here. Outside of the main quest, everything else, it really feels meh. The side quest side of things, it's just totally... You know, I probably would have enjoyed this game if I had started at Vineland and then just done all the main quest. I probably would have finished the game in about 5 hours, but I probably would have actually enjoyed that. You know, but you don't spend $60 on a full-priced game like this. Full-priced game for $60, of course it's full-priced if it's $60. You don't spend $60 on a game like this to play for 5 hours and then ignore what is probably 90% of the content because you know it's going to be boring. Oh, it's just so frustrating. So close. So close. Such potential for a great game.